started as a little idea 3.5 years ago, just made it to the podcast stage at South by Southwest Sydney. It was a dream come true to host Emerging Tech Unpacked on the live podcast stage to a full house at one of the world's biggest tech, business and culture conferences. It was even better to talk about future skills. I love this topic, and to be able to share the stage with brilliant leaders from LinkedIn, Google Cloud and Microsoft to unpack what it really means to master future skills in the age of constant change and uncertainty. In a world where uncertainty about our jobs and career opportunities feels heavier than ever, one thing stood out. It doesn't have to feel overwhelming when we focus on adaptability, curiosity, and human connection. Welcome to Emerging Tech Unpacked, a podcast that unpacks emerging tech topics and careers with diverse perspectives. If this is your first time here, welcome. And if you are a loyal listener, I'm very honoured. Please do like and share it with a friend or network so they know about us as well. I'm delighted to share this special live edition hosted on the podcast stage at South by Southwest Sydney. My name is Lucy Lynn, and let's chat about how we can master future skills in an age of uncertainty. Thank you so much for coming today. This is so exciting. We have a full house at South by Southwest on the live podcast stage. My name is Lucy Lynn. I'm the host of the Emerging Tech Unpacked podcast. Can we give everyone a bit of a cheer for coming today? Yeah. So I am so excited that we are all here today and absolutely delighted to talk about future skills as a topic because can I tell you, it is so hot and relevant right now. Especially with so much uncertainty that we have in the world right now. So I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by three incredible panel members as we debunk this topic a little bit more. A little bit about Emerging Tech Unpacked, a podcast that I run. It is a podcast that debunks emerging technologies, and we also feature career stories of incredible storytellers, technologists, scientists, researchers, and just incredible people that I like and enjoy, you know. So the point of today is to talk a bit about the technology, but also a bit about their careers and the future skills that we need for the future. In the world that we're living right now, the pace of change is accelerating so quickly. Technologies like artificial intelligence, automation are reshaping the way we work, we create, and the way we connect. Often it's much faster than we predict. So what we consider future skills is just potentially a few years away, but it's not. It's already here and they're business essentials for right now. The line between technical and human expertise is constantly evolving. The future of work feels uncertain, but it doesn't have to feel overwhelming. And today, what we would like to do is to help bring a little bit of that overwhelm and to make sure we put some more clarity into your uncertainty. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by a panel of incredible guests who are working at the forefront of tech and skills development. They're here to really help us unpack this topic and also help us to navigate and master future skills. So I'm joined by Audrey Lobo-Pulo, the Head of Public Policy and Economic Graph Australia and New Zealand at LinkedIn. Welcome, Audrey.
Thank you, Lucy.
I'm also joined by Natalie Puco, Chief Technologist at Google Cloud. Hi, Nat.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And then we've got Tim Allen. No, not the home improvement or the Buzz Lightyear guy. He's the AI National Skills Director, ANZ at Microsoft. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Lucy.
Right. So we're going to get started with a bit of a brief overview because I would like to hear your stories about how you came about and how did you get into these roles that you currently have. So if you can provide a quick 2-minute overview, Audrey, about your career so far.
Oh, Lucy, I feel like my career is not linear at all. So I started off as a physicist, looking at fiber optics and doing a bit of research there. And then decided that I was done with modelling the physical sciences. I wanted to take on modelling the labour market and economy. So I got myself a job at the Department of Treasury and found that it was way harder to model people behaviour than it was to model, physical systems. And then sort of pivoted into economics and did my economics policy degree, which gave me a better understanding of how the politics of decision making sort of comes together. Spent a bit of time at Treasury, really thinking about social policy, taxes, technology, and then decided that I was going to leave government and be an entrepreneur. Started my own business for a couple of years doing tech consulting, where I cut my teeth on tech policy issues. AI was not quite, it didn't have the excitement that it does today, but it was starting to emerge. You could start hear the conversation starting to come through. COVID hit, and unfortunately for a lot of startups, I found myself in a situation where I had to make a decision, so I had to pivot again, and was really lucky to join LinkedIn and the LinkedIn team here in Australia. So I look after the public policy work, where I really get to enjoy being at the forefront of what's happening on tech issues. And I also look after the economic graph work here as well, which is very much about looking at the trends and the work trends and the skills trends that we're seeing on the platform on LinkedIn.
Yeah, Audrey's going to provide some really interesting stats later on, right?
Sure,
Yeah.
was for sure. Up to date, near real time.
Can't wait to hear that. Nat, do you want to go next? What's your story?
So I have had this kind of backstage pass to working with some of the fastest growing tech businesses on the planet for the past decade. But it didn't start that way. I grew up in South Coast regional Australia, had two parents that run a small business, and I ended up in Silicon Valley. I got taken out of my regional university and flown to the States, and I got this kind of engineering degree that you really couldn't buy at Google, working with some of the founders of the internet. I guess the story is I made this huge pivot. I studied business. I studied PR and marketing and ended up in engineering. So it's almost like this movie script you couldn't write. My family from home still don't understand what I do. They think I provide the search results. When you type it, go on holidays. So I guess within that kind of, it's been a fairly rocket ship career over the past decade. I've helped 6 products inside Google bring those products to market. So AI in photos, AI in our hardware, our cloud business, our AI business. I have led a AI education team that educated over 90,000 people across the world on how to use AI. And I'm kind of on the edge of investment as well. I sit on Google's investment fund, so I get to see how we're actually investing in technology. I helped the team invest in the first Aussie business last year, 2 brothers from Adelaide with a cybersecurity company. And I do a couple of other things like help the Australian government think about tech and kind of AI for us as a country, and sit on the board of a large Australian university. And really what I'm doing right now is I'm at the epicenter of helping Google bring our AI technology to businesses. So throughout that time, I've made a whole bunch of pivots, like the grand pivot being non-tech to engineering, which I still don't really kind of understand how that happened. But I guess now I've become known for being the person that works with businesses to go to places they could never, they're still defining what's possible. And I end up being that person that kind of is the tech translator for business owners, for founders, for large ASX listed businesses.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think we need to have, non-tech and tech expertise. And I think you've got both. And it's also interesting to hear that you've changed your career within the company as well.
Yeah,
not
multiple times.
Yeah, not just jump from company to company or industry to industry. It's great. Tim, what's your story?
I love these stories. So I wasn't going to start off here, but I actually grew up in a small country town, regional New South Wales, a little town called Scone, which is about 3,500 people. So I actually don't know how I got here as well. My dad's a coal miner. My mum worked in the canteen, and
my dad's a coal miner too.
That's really sure.
Maybe there's a connection between coal mining and tech that we haven't got. If anyone is a research piece, but
bit of a pivot happening there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I couldn't find a good analogy for that. But so when I was younger, I wanted to be a professional sports person and a cricket player. But at about about 8 years old, I realized I wasn't good enough. So I pivoted, and then I wanted to be a sports physio because I was like, if I'm not good enough from a skill set, I want to be around it, but I wasn't smart enough to be a physio. So then I did a less physio degree called a human science degree, exercise science and human physiology at a regional university. And I probably love the social side of university rather than that. So I decided to do a dip ed on top of it. So I actually am a secondary PE teacher by trade, but I didn't do a day of teaching. So my first job out of university, I was a professional jump roper. Hands up if you've done jump rope for heart at school before, yeah? So my first job out of university was I did skipping demonstration in schools all around Australia. And to answer the question, yes, I do have a killer crisscross. It's pretty good.
Can you do a double dutch?
A double dutch, I can get kindergarten kids into double dutch. So if I get a kindergarten kid into double dutch, I can get you guys into double dutch. But so I actually started my professional career into charity. So I worked for the Heart Foundation and then moved into the Red Cross. And so it's a bit of a weird pivot to go from kind of community organizations to tech organizations. I never thought I'd be here. But when I was at in charity land, I love this connection between like helping community and the kind of core thing around, charities is around how do you help people. But I always had this kind of weird thing that I want to explore in like the private sector and business. And so, corporate social responsibility, shared value, triple bottom line, I explored that. And eventually kind of did some consulting, work for EY, and then got a job at Microsoft. So that's kind of hard. So I don't know how I go from skipping to skills or like teaching to tech, but we're able to do it. But my through line through it all, and I'm really blessed that I have the job that I do, I'll explain in a second, at Microsoft, is around how can we help people? And like, what's the value that we can place in helping people? And I'm just lucky enough now to have a job that allows me to, work in a tech company and be on the edge of innovation, but my role is to help people. So my job is I sit within the social impact part of Microsoft. We call it Microsoft Elevate. And our focus at the moment is around AI skills. So my job is AI skills director. If I try and explain that to my mum and dad, they don't even know what AI is. They don't know what skills are. They don't know what Microsoft is. So it's pretty hard kind of convincing them what my job is. But our role and my role is around providing economic opportunity for all in this kind of new AI era. And we really believe that, skills are the kind of foundational element for everyone to be able to achieve what they want to do. And maybe it's, going from skipping to tech or imagining something that's beyond what people can see at the moment.
Skipping to tech. Or skipping to skills.
Skipping to skills. Teaching to tech.
Teaching tech. So it sounds like everyone's come from a career pivot. I mean, I don't know if you know my story, but I've come from teaching in Japan. I actually don't have a teaching degree and I taught in Japan. But I've got a communications degree. And then I spent a long time in marketing and communications. And then now I'm pivoting into podcasting, creating content. My parents were also blue collar workers. My dad drove a truck, and then my mum was a childcarer, and neither of them know what a podcast is either. They do watch YouTube. So it sounds like we are all moving from different careers into this emerging tech space, which I think is really important because look how far our parents have come to where we are. And what about the next generation? I think it's going to change so quickly. So we teased you a little bit, Audrey, about some of these work stats. I think maybe we can start there. I'd love to start with the macro. What are some of these trends you're seeing in terms of the work stats that we have? And, LinkedIn has a treasure trove of data. Can you tell us some of the things that you're seeing from a macro perspective?
Yeah, I think we really hit it there, when we talk about skills. And we're starting to see a lot of new skills coming up, right? But we don't really have a sense of how that was really different as compared to, our parents' generation, to your point. But what we can say is that on LinkedIn, if you think about the skills that were needed in 2016 and think of where we are now, by 2030, the skills will have changed by 66% is what we're thinking. So if you compare 2016, 2030, that's like a lot of change. 66% of your skills will have changed for the same role. So it's not as if your job's necessarily changing. It's more that your job role is changing on you. So people even in the same role are going to have to start adapting. And this kind of change we haven't seen like in the past. This is unprecedented. So, yes, we're moving from our parents' generation to our generation and to the next generation, but the pivotal difference there is going to be the rate of change of skills that we're going to be seeing.
Mm. That's so much change. And what are you seeing some of the changes in work roles potentially, or maybe even some of these stats and data that you've seen?
I think, like everyone has been talking about AI and the impact it's going to have on jobs and on roles and the tasks that we do. And so from a LinkedIn perspective, we've been thinking about like, how are people's tasks in their role going to change? What's going to be automated? What's going to be disrupted? What are the types of roles that are going to change? And what we found is for Australia, about half the roles will be fairly insulated. So 50% of the workforce is going to feel like there's going to be a bit of change, but not too much. And then the remaining 50%, half of them are going to have their roles that are going to be largely automated and disrupted, and the other half will have them augmented. So what we're seeing is there's going to be a lot of change for 50% of the workforce. And what does that mean from a worker perspective? We're seeing that those changes tend to impact women a lot more, younger workers a lot more. And the reason is because women and younger workers tend to occupy roles that traditionally can be automated. So that's that part of the story. But what we're also seeing is that from a skills perspective, the complementary skills around AI are going to be in high demand. So soft skills, communication skills, podcasting skills are going to be even more in demand than previously. Support skills, HR skills, finance. So the jobs and the skills required to really support this uplift in AI productivity are going to increase.
Yeah, fascinating. That is really fascinating, because I've always thought about the change, and I do, a lot of my podcasts, because it's diversity, it's careers, and it's education, is women and students. Just moving from that, from an AI skills perspective, Tim, I think we were talking about this when it comes to students and maybe even women. Like, are you seeing AI being changing and influencing and being disrupted potentially? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think disrupting the workforce, you mean, is AI disrupting the workforce. I think, like Audrey said, there's, the skill sets are changing. And I think as businesses look to change their workforce development plans and what the role of a worker is in that role, they're going to first and foremost kind of restrict. What I mean by that is restrict the amount of new people that they're bringing into an organization, which I think is making it harder for early in career professions to kind of break in this period of time. And we're seeing that start a lot. And if anyone's got any, kind of 18, 19 to 25, 26-year-old kind of, people come from university, either within their family or within the network, they can see it's really, really hard. But I think there's a brightness into the future as well, because as that settles, as we kind of have less uncertainty within what our job roles, young people are going to be these super workers of the future. Like, they're going to have, they're going to be AI native in their skill sets. They're going to use it in a multiple daily basis, for learning and interaction. And they're going to have this really unique set that's going to go into the workforce in the next 3 to 5 years. And so I think right now for young people, there's a real tension point. But I think there's going to be a lot of innovation that comes out of that tension point. But I think in the next kind of 4 to 5 years, we're going to see young people dominate the workforce, like we saw back in the kind of .com boom with the Googles of the world and the Facebooks of the world of coming through and building these innovative companies. And then I think on the diversity side, Audrey spoke about it before, like these kind of human skill sets are kind of being elevated rather than the technical skill sets. So these kind of compassion and curiosity and creativity, they're kind of a higher order kind of skill set. And I actually think of, our diverse workforce, and usually the people that are more diverse are the people that hold those skills higher. So, I think, there's a transition that we need to go through, but I think it's going to be really interesting and useful in the future.
And I love how you talked about both, because I started my career as a teacher in Japan, multicultural, teaching. But then also I just finished teaching at a university, a skills program for women and multicultural people. And it's good to hear that I hear a lot of students going, oh my God, I'm not going to graduate with a job. You know, like AI is going to be taking on my junior roles, and then now you're telling me you can hear an AI superpowers super worker. Is that what are they going to do, Tim?
Once again, I think the transition over the next 3 to 4 years is going to be harder, but I think that's going to come out like the young people of the future are going to potentially build their own businesses, have more side hustles, break down this kind of, what we've been told is a career trajectory is like do this, do well at school, do well at university, go to this kind of area, then go on that career path. I just don't think that'll happen. And I actually think this area is going to force a lot of young people to kind of look into their skill set and go, you know what, I'm pretty good. I'll start my own business. I'll do my own side hustle. I'll do that. And it's going to create this real innovation culture and, the super workforce of the future. So, so I know I can't say it's not hard for people, but I think the bigger one is going to be leaders of businesses in the future. And how do you bring this talent in and help them grow inside of your business?
I think that's fascinating. Thank you for that insight because, it just goes to show that I think the next few years is going to be difficult, but, I think we're all going to become better for it. Natalie, you work very much in the emerging technologies. Can you tell us a little bit more about all this new emerging tech that is coming in to influence all the skills of our workplaces?
Yeah. So my perspective and what I see is very much around businesses using AI and cloud technology. If you look at the cloud, Google's cloud business alone, that business, which is the fastest growing business inside one of the biggest tech companies in the world, is growing at 30% per year. This is huge, right? So this AI cloud thing is not going away. Our CEO, Sundar, stood up on stage about 2 days ago and said around that 30% mark is what AI is creating new code inside Google. So let me say that more simply, 30% of new code being developed inside Google is being created by AI. Right?
Wow.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So I think if I had to look at the skills that I think is needed, we need more people that can take AI and cloud technology and help businesses implement that technology. So not only that, but we need people who deeply understand their niche, whether it's I was at a big construction conference last week. We need people in construction who understand AI. We need people, we work with Heidi Health in medical. So they're building this technology that sits in the background of your doctor and kind of ambiently collects the conversation and then allows the doctor to be able to annotate the notes. We need people not only to be able to take just large language models, but actually work with niche businesses to actually implement them. We also need people in the data center and infrastructure space because I guess what you don't see as a consumer of AI is just how much power these models need. I heard this fact that a large language model takes the same amount of power that it would take to drive a car to the moon and back, right? It's a lot of power. And I heard Scott Farquhar, who's one of the co-founders of Atlassian, stand in front of the National Press Club a couple of weeks ago, and he called for the Australian government to have these tech apprenticeships, so 6 to 12 months, where we take folks, because people just keep talking about the tech people pivoting with tech skills. We actually need people who are plumbers, electricians, builders. We need those people to be able to pivot into the tech space. So I think this idea of these faster apprenticeships, we must change the way we think about micro-credentialing. And then in terms of the actual human skills, which I think we've all touched on, in my view, if I look at anyone that I work with that has multi-billion-dollar tech businesses or that, they're having very successful careers in tech, they have this one skill and it's their tolerance for ambiguity. So I think that your tolerance for the changing work environment is kind of now your job security, I would say. That's the seatbelt. Because before we used to hold on to a job. My parents had the same job for 30 years. That's just not the case anymore. Your seatbelt now is how quickly you don't go through learning hoops, which I think was the old way to have a career. you went to like kind of this job, and then you kind of, it went just hoops. Now it's loops. It's like, how quickly can you learn a skill, apply it, move on, learn a skill, apply it, move on. So it's this ambiguity and resilience to change that I think is, I've got a 1-year-old now, and if there's anything that I'm going to teach him, people always ask me what coding language I think I want to teach him. I'm going to teach him how, resilience and adaptability. And I think this idea of, just being able to be in an environment that's constantly changing. And it's this idea of everything is figure-outable. I think that's what it is. It's this figure-outable mindset.
A problem solver.
It's this problem. And that's how I've been able to pivot my career so many times inside tech. It's this idea that you learn a new technology, you learn a deep, you come back out, you move to the next one. So it's this figure-outable mindset.
Yeah.
That's what I'll be teaching my one.
Yeah, nice. You touched on my next question, actually, which is, what is the 3 most important skills that you need for the workplace? So I love that. I loved how you talked about resilience, figure-outable, and being able to adapt to ambiguity. I think 3 very good skills to have.
Yeah.
Audrey, what do you think are 3 important skills that we need for the workplace, of the changing workplace?
So I love the resilience. I would say agility, but I would also say, and this is not really a skill, but it kind of brings together what we've discussed so far, which is context. I feel like because there's going to be so much pivoting and there's going to be so much change, one thing that we're really good as humans that we can do is apply context to whatever to the problem at hand, right? So we might pivot from a completely different industry to another, but we understand the context around which we've worked in that former industry, and we take that learning and knowledge and apply it to the new one. And I feel that, the next generation is going to be doing a lot more of these kinds of pivots. And so what's going to bring humans, give humans that superpower as compared to the technology that we're using is to be able to apply that context to the technology. So the technology will be the experts that dig in really deep, and then the humans, in addition to the communication skills, will provide that contextual lens around that.
Love that. Tim, what do you think? What's the most important skill?
It's hard to get the one most important one, but I like the figure-outable because I like it. I love that word. I like mine's like positive curiosity. So or optimism. This kind of positive curiosity. Like if anyone watches like Simon Sinek, I love that kind of optimism thing, because I think if you're just positively curious, you kind of want to know more about people. You want to learn about things. You've kind of got that learn it all rather than know it all mindset. But if you flip on the optimism side, it's like you assume that all people are good people, which I think is the best part about humanity. If you assume the person across from you is good, we all progress. If you assume the worst, we all decline. And if I assume this is going to be better, if I assume tomorrow is going to be better than today, you kind of progress. I think there's another human skill set, which I think is really important, which is the ability to be able to relate to lots of people. So growing up in Scone, one of the best things that I learned in Scone was I used to play cricket as a 13-year-old with 70-year-olds, and we'd go to the pub, and I wouldn't drink, but you'd have to sit around with 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. No, there's 7.
Do that in Scone.
Yeah, guys, got it. That's the way that we get out of town. But it was the best skill set I learned, because I used to have an adult conversation as a teenager, and I used to have to learn lots. And so I know in my role now, the ability to be able to connect and relate to lots of different people, even if I don't understand who they are and where they've come from, I think is it's a really important skill. And now I'm in Sydney, I could see my kids. I got a 7 and 5-year-old, and we just live in our own little bubble a little bit too much, and we're kind of in our own kind of thing. We're in our work bubble, and just to explore that. The only kind of exploration we do is when we go on a holiday overseas, and I just think it's a little bit limited. Anyway, but I think the ability to to relate to lots of different people, and I think that I'm a social impact person, so everything's about people rather than hard skills. Do you know the number one skill set that I wish I kind of learned when I was younger, which is authenticity? We spend half our lives trying to be someone else, and then we realize that we're good enough and good things happen. I don't know if when I went from, and it was EY, I spent like the first year at EY trying to be someone who I thought I wouldn't be, because I'm just this country kid that, that isn't as polished as everyone around and doesn't have a master's degree. And I struggled for that kind of first, kind of year or two, because I was trying to be someone else. And then I was just unapologetically me, and I did good things. And so like, it's this kind of being authentic is really important. And like, we kind of try and, get people to look at the Joneses and try and be someone else. But, we've got so much power in ourselves, and people relate to you when you are authentic. So just how you can be.
I agree. I'm sitting with a lot of CEOs and leaders at the moment across the top companies in Australia that everyone's going through an AI transformation. So I'm in most of those conversations. And I keep sitting with the leaders and I'm saying, you have to adopt this kind of learner, not a knower mindset in where we are right now. So be a learner, not a knower. And I think that's changed a lot. And it's a really big mindset for a lot of people who have had traditional careers, because it's really unauthentic right now for a leader to stand in front of a company and say, this is exactly where we're going to go. Like, people see through it, right? I think if I'm coaching a lot of tech leaders right now to say, you must stand in front of your company and say, we don't exactly know, but we can make a pretty educated guess that this is where we're headed. If you have an idea and you want to be on board with this change, come and tell me. Come and be a part of the change. And I think that is a much more authentic, empowering way to lead through a world right now. If you're leading any business, it doesn't have to be a top business, it could be a small business as well, to say, we don't know where we're going, but hand out a hand, and it gives someone else an opportunity to step to and say, we're reaching down now to a lot of, interns and people that are coming through that absolutely know where the world is going. It gives them an opportunity to sit in the boardroom and say, this is where we should go. So I think that idea, to your point around authenticity, I think it was Brene Brown that coined that, not me. You can quote me if you like, but I think it was Brene. Be a learner, not a knower. And I have to do that in my role, because when you're the tech expert, and Google has launched 6 AI products in 12 months, and my job is to stand in front of the world and tell them about that. It's hard. It's really hard. And the only way that I've been able to have this career on the edge of technology is to say, I don't know all the answers, but this is kind of where we're headed. We think we're headed.
Well, everything's moving so quickly. It's really hard to keep up with it all. And I love that authentic leadership that you were talking about, because I think it's really important. And I think maybe as society or as company culture, we're like, we can't have leaders standing in front saying, they don't have the answers to everything, And I do think that culturally, or that systems needs to change. And I love this authenticity as a great underrated trait or skill. Audrey, do you have a underrated trait or skill that has really helped you in your career as well?
Look, I would never have said this when I was a lot younger and started my career, but I think storytelling is really important, particularly in the tech sector where things are changing so much, and we're like, how do we communicate something that's really complex to someone else, and how do we take that to the next level? How do we come together? I'm going to be a bit of a nerd and say that, LinkedIn, we have a lot of skills on the platform, obviously, but what we have found is that over 800 skills are just only human skills. So they cannot be done by a machine at this point. So what that means is that there's just so much that we can start to lean in on when it comes to those human skills and the human side. And how do we communicate that?
Do you also see the data of how many people have added AI as a skill to their LinkedIn?
Oh, this one we could be talking about for a long time. So I feel like there's 2 camps to this. One is that people are really keen to show that they are building up their skills and upskilling in AI, but we come to a point as well where we're not necessarily listing our Excel skills or our Word skills because it's assumed knowledge. So we get into this phase where we get to a point where it's understood that people have those skills. There is a basic understanding of what AI literacy is. And I feel like we're in that transition now where there are people who are listing their AI skills on the platform, but there are some that feel like, in their particular industry or sector, it's understood that they have those skills.
Yes.
So interesting. Wow, 800 skills. How many skills do you think there is? Like if 800 skills is just the ones you know.
Oh, gosh, I'm sure there's plenty, right? And they're constantly changing, and some skills are being deprecated, and there are more skills that are coming in play. But what we do know is that there's going to be a place for humans, and there's going to be a need to connect, back to Tim's point, on a social level, because humans do what humans are really good at. It is the storytelling. It is bringing people on board. It is coming together with, authenticity, compassion to try and solve a problem. It's not like the number of problems we have in a technological era has diminished and, we don't have to worry about anything anymore.
And look, it's an interesting one because there's hundreds, if not thousands of skill sets in your taxonomy that you can kind of go through. But we're talking about new skills. I just think it's a reprioritization of old skills, if that makes sense. It's just what are valuable skills that we're seeing in the workplace. And I know we're speaking a lot about human skills, but I've got this kind of analogy now, with more AI, I think it's the rise of the human, which I know sounds a bit strange, but I think the human wins. I think these human skills and being more human is going to be our unique kind of differentiator. So these human skills, connecting to people, what that kind of looks like. I think that's that's going to be the prioritization of skill set that you said it before, agility or the ability to be resilient and adapt. That's the prioritization of the skill sets of the future.
Yeah, and I actually think one of the skills that is underrated is creativity as well. So on top of the storytelling, but that's how we can also, I guess, go against the machines and AIs, human creativity and us thinking outside the box. I don't think machines can do that yet. Humans are really good at that right now, so, and I think our creativity and our ability to think outside the box will continue to be our differentiator. With industry moving so quickly, technology moving so quickly, what are some of the strategies that you use to keep everything up, your knowledge up to date with all the changes that you have?
It's a really good question. I want to hear from Audrey and Nat as well, because but I'm not a learner by reader. I'm dyslexic, so I really struggle to read. The kind of classic form of education wasn't really, kind of where my thing is. So my thing is podcasts. So woohoo.
Yeah.
And then and videos and short form videos, especially LinkedIn Learning and that kind of short form I really like. But because of the position I'm in and working for Microsoft, I'm really proactive in finding ways to connect with humans to learn off humans. So if I'm you're interesting, I want to learn more from you, I was let's go get a coffee, let's catch up for a virtual chat. Especially at the moment when you're at the edge of this technology, it's more about sourcing out human interactions where I can have
not the head.
Yeah, the kind of curiosity thing, and especially these discussions I find really, 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 really interesting. So I'm really intentional on sourcing out human interaction or human moments where I can be in a learning environment. And I'll explain that in a bit more detail. I don't know about you, but if I'm sitting at my desk or wherever I am on a computer working, I've got 45 things going on. I've got kids yelling in the background. I've got pop-up here. I'm trying to do shopping here. I've got a meeting here. And I just I never can be in the moment for a period of time to actually absorb what I'm doing. It's more task-based, get to the next thing, get to the end of the day. And so kind of coming to conferences like this, or even when you're traveling for work or when I'm driving in a car or meeting with someone, I can just be focused in on that thing for that moment. And that's the way I learn the best. So I try and find those moments where I can just shut down and just be present in it. And usually for me, that's just being interactive with someone. And then I suppose from a tactic perspective, it's just around the sequencing of questions I have that person so I can learn from it. And coming back to that positive curiosity, kind of going deeper in areas that I'm not really an expert in. I'm a skills person or a social impact person, but I'll go deep on quantum or go deep on this area just to be curious in those. And I don't know really what anyone's talking about, but it's if I ask enough questions and then provide the right context, I kind of learn in my environment, then I can progress forward. So that's how I like to learn. Once again, I'm not a book learner. I'm a visual learner and a people learner. So I just try and find areas that I can kind of lean into that.
Yeah, I'm doing more informational coffees now. So I can learn from other people, learn about the new jobs and learn what they're working on. And I agree, I think it's nice to be in an environment like this, because then we can learn from each other as well. What about you, Nat? How do you learn? Because there's so many changes you have to know about.
Yeah, it's tough. I think to be able to pivot from a non-tech background to a deeply technical background, I definitely discovered the who, not how technique. So I typically go to the person I think knows about the thing versus going deep in the technology to begin with. So I very much have that who, not how. I am going through this transition right now. So I had a baby. I took 12 months out, which was kind of crazy to be at the epicenter of this technology and decide to take a year off and to come back into agentic AI. So agentic AI is not just asking LLMs a question, it's actually asking an AI to do something for you. So that happened while I had my own AI, which I'm saying my actual intelligence, Harrison and Hassan. So I'm coming back to that, right? So I'm in the epicenter of learning something brand new right now. So the way I like to teach myself, and I know my learning technique, it's very clear. I create like high pressure feedback loops for myself. So I put time boxed delivery points for myself. So for example, this week I have 3 keynotes on agentic AI as part of this. I'm the person that needs a deadline. I don't know if you are too. Create a deadline for yourself and do it by teaching someone. That is how I've spent my entire career. I figured that out early on, that if I say, I'm going to learn this thing, I'm going to learn it to about 60%, and then I'm going to go to somebody and I'm going to teach them it. Then I'm going to get feedback from it. Then I'm going to take it to someone else and I'm going to teach it. Then I'm going to take it to someone else. I'm going to teach it. Some people think I'm crazy because I take that to the absolute extreme, and I'll take something that I'm learning and do it on a stage in front of 3,000 people. Like, that's a little bit nuts. You don't have to go that far, but you could definitely take I'm sure you all sit in businesses or run your own businesses. At your next, team Monday morning jam meeting, whatever you call it, say, hey, I've been learning about AI and these are the 3 things that I know. Yeah, that's how you do it. I think people think they've got to go and spend thousands of dollars on a course right now. I think that's one way of doing it, but I find that if you can create a time frame for yourself, tell someone, commit to, it's like going to the gym. If you tell a friend you're doing it, you kind of got to go. So commit to doing it at a time frame and teach without knowing all of it. Know like 60% of it. I was at the Connected Women event last week, which is all the big AI tech companies across Australia with women, and we talked about in AI, I think the number one skill right now that you need to learn is it's the idea of being ready is not a feeling. Being ready is a decision that you make. That is something that I've learned throughout my entire career. You will never feel ready. Like, what does that even mean? Like, feel ready to start AI, feel ready to have a family, feel ready to take your career overseas. Like, what does that feeling actually mean? You can't describe it. It's intangible. But if you look at anyone that's had very successful careers in business or technology or whatever it is, they have almost always made a decision to be ready.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. No, I love that. And I think you touch a little bit about that imposter syndrome as well, which is what I was thinking about, because I don't know if I ever feel ready. And I think a lot of women maybe feel like they don't have the confidence to kind of say, oh, I know this stuff because I need to be 100%.
We're kidding ourselves.
60%.
That's not a feeling.
Yeah. It took me 2 years to launch this podcast. 2 years, because I was doubling around going, oh, do I know everything? Do I know how to video edit? Do I know the right equipment? Do I know how to write a script? Do I know how to, all these things? And I think I probably could have launched a lot faster because I wasn't feeling ready. That was the thing.
And how do you know?
That's the thing. I know. And then by then, in those 2 years, thousands of others, launched before me. And but I did do it, and I finally felt ready. But it did take me 2 years to feel ready. And so I love that 60% rule, because I don't think you need to be at 100%. 60%.
Well, you can't be in this AI world. Well, who's at 100% in agentic AI? Like, find them and I'll tell you a liar. Yes, I work with them. And even they are not at 100%,
That's right.
So funny you should say, it took a while. So Microsoft and LinkedIn, we did this research and we found that in Australia, there's roughly around 39% of workers who have an anxiety about learning AI skills. But what we found really interesting was men were 1.4 times more likely to upskill than women. And there's a hesitant. So men were 1.4 times, so around 1.5 times more likely than women to upskill in AI. Although they both have the same level of anxiety. So we didn't find a difference in anxiety levels between the percentage of people that felt anxious about, upskilling in AI was roughly 39% for men and women. So I wonder whether there is a gender angle on that as well. From my perspective, I have a tech background, but it's still changing on me. So I find that what's easiest for me to upskill is when I'm dealing with a problem, I try not to take any shortcuts. So as painful as it is to learn, how to use AI to do it, I will put the effort in and do it, because you only really learn by doing and failing. And more often than not, you fail, but that's also how you learn. And then speaking to, colleagues and figuring out how we come together to solve that problem, it's all part of the learning. So it's a real integrated kind of approach.
It's interesting. I love this conversation. It's really interesting that, especially with AI and this new technology, it's not an academic technology, it's an applied technology, but we're trying to learn in an academic way. As you said, it's kind of it's not, because it's moving so fast, and actually when you need to use it to learn how to use it, you can't just think about it or learn about to learn how to adapt to it. But we're trying to kind of put our old education system on a way to learn about it. And I think that's interesting, it's an applied one. But on what you said around the stats is interesting. Can I have this talk around, I don't think this is, to have AI adopted or AI skills or, to that permeate across the economy and everyone know how to use it. I don't think it's a technology change problem. It's not it's not a tech problem. It's a people problem or behavior change problem. And we like to think about AI adoption these three kind of piffy things. But I think this is interesting, because if we think about it as a people first component, as why won't people change their behavior to use this technology? If 50% of jobs are going to be augmented or impacted in the next 5 years, if we know that this is going to be one of the core things that helps us get a job to the future, all these reasons we know, it's kind of it's not an information problem or a tech problem, it's a behavior change problem. So why don't we? So there's a feeling in it. And there's these three levels. I like to, the first one, you got to move people from fear to FOMO. So how do you meet people not worried about the technology to curious about it? The second one is, how do we then turn this into a hype to habit, like the gym, kind of this is cool, but how do I turn it a daily habit? And the last one is how do we go from good at the technology to great at the technology? But I think there's sometimes we look at the end goal, we've got to go build our own kind of AI native platform, we've got to do that. Whereas ultimately we're I'm not sure if I even trust this technology, or I don't know what it is. And so, and especially inside of organizations, we've got to take people through this kind of behavior change continuum, not just kind of, drop stuff in, drop technology in and go for your life. And people are whoa, I'm not ready for that. So I think there's, if we think about this from a human side or a people side and this technical skilling side, I think that's how we can get progression.
Yeah, amazing. I love and I agree with everything here. I'm mortified by that stat, and I would like to understand why potentially there is that gap potentially. I don't know if you can explain it to him, or maybe.
Look, I don't think we have the answers, but what I can say is women, this is the other thing we've noticed, women tend to underreport their skills on LinkedIn as compared to men for the same role. So what we're dealing with is also a cultural aspect of how do we tackle these issues around upskilling. Now, the news isn't all bad, because what we've also found is that women tend to have a higher share of soft skills as compared to men. And in an age where you're going to need more soft skills to complement AI, that's a great opportunity for women. So how do we bring those pieces together and have that conversation?
I sit at a lot of those tables as the only female, and I have for a very long time. And I also think even then, even 10 years ago, there was rarely any women at the table. And now I think what you're seeing is all those people that were software engineers are now just reskilling to be AI engineers. So I think there's also just the hangover in a way of just what it was before. But I just think there is so much opportunity right now. If you are sitting inside a small business to not have any AI skills at all and see an opportunity and actually say, oh, look at that workflow. Look at the way we reply back to customers. Look at the way we're putting new content out into the world. Look at the way we're insert any kind of business process that you have. Like, they are non-technical processes that actually you can apply AI to. And I think I noticed that 97% of businesses in Australia are small businesses, and they contribute around 60% of GDP economic activities to Australia. There is such a huge opportunity right now if you are interested in getting into this field to educate small businesses in Australia on AI. And I actually don't think you need to have a tech background to do that. So because I think the tech is much more approachable now than it was when I was learning about AI 10 years ago. So to your point, I really do hope that because this technology is now a dinner table conversation, and because it's less low code, lovable, you name the technology, Replit, that you can talk an app into existence. I'm really hoping that, to your point, kind of levels the playing field a little bit, because as women, we are very good at problem solving. We are very good at seeing repeatable decisions, repeatable problems that we do over and over and over again, which is perfect opportunity for AI, and seeing those opportunities inside of business and applying technology. So I'm really hoping it levels the playing field.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love how you're talking about small business, because I don't think we talk enough about.
We don't.
No.
There's a huge.
Not at all. Yeah, my mum's always worked for herself in her own small business.
Yeah.
And
they're going to need to be educated on AI.
That's right. And they have so little time to learn about this. So little time. I'd love to hear about your future thoughts. Like, where do you see some of the most important skills going to be for the next systems change? Like, if we're looking at utopia and this systems change, etc., what do you think that would look like? And also, what kind of skills will we need there?
I'm happy to think about this and have a stab at this. Look, I think our young people are right in the middle of this right now, where they are at school or university, and they are dealing and are embedded in a world where they're using AI to solve problems that we traditionally solve without AI. So they are starting to see patterns and ways of using this technology in a really integrated, embedded way. And I feel like that contextual sort of agility and having the skills to see it from a systems perspective is what is going to be the future. I kind of feel really siloed in my role right now, because I feel like I didn't grow up with AI. I see my son, navigating ChatGPT and leveraging AI to create these amazing school projects, and we never had that. So
you had to think. You had to do everything yourself.
You did, but they also know where to go and the questions to ask.
Yeah.
Right. And it'll prompt them to figure out what questions to ask too. So it'll be like, have you thought about this? So I feel like they have a much more broader understanding, whereas my understanding from a generational perspective feels a lot more siloed. So I think the skill going forward is, how do we leverage AI and become all-rounders?
So generalist, do you think, is going to be generalist over the specialist? Interesting. What about you, Nat? What do you think?
What I'm seeing with some of the future skills, very practically. So I was just speaking with Cam, who's one of the co-founders of Canva, and we were just having this conversation around future skills. And to your point, I think we are going to need an influx of UX designers. So people that actually design the human experience with how people interact with technology. To your point, exactly. I'm a little bit embarrassed to tell you this story, that not long ago I had a physical map in front of me, and I picked it up and I pinched and I zoomed it. Oh God, I looked up to myself and I thought, God, I hope no one saw me do that. But the reason why I tell you that story is because we have the mental models only now of how to use phones and how to use tablets, right? We haven't really developed those mental models yet on how to use AI, because you put a chat box in front of your parents or your grandma, whoever right now, they don't know what to do with it. They don't I'm talking like Gemini or ChatGPT. They don't know what to ask. So It's a new muscle. So we haven't developed that pinching moment yet. We haven't developed the swipe for AI. So we need people to design that future, the design visual aspect of it. Secondly, I get to spend time with big businesses and startups, so I'm seeing both roles emerge. One, we need AI project managers. So these are tech project managers that are experts in managing the deployment and creation of AI systems inside large businesses. So it's kind of the project manager role that has like a badge for specifically AI. So we're going to definitely need more of those people too. And I think if you're a software engineer right now, and this is essentially what Canva did, they basically gave their teams a week off to say, go and learn AI. Like that is how serious some businesses are being right now about the time they're giving their employees to actually go and learn. And a lot of software engineers are pivoting to be AI engineers. So they're three things, three roles. So UX designers, AI project managers, and the convergence of people that have, general software skills to become AI developers.
That's the opposite. That's the opposite to the.
Sometimes like it's zooming out and zooming in, and then zooming back out and zooming back in. It's a dynamic kind of a.
It is, and also depends. This question depends on where you sit in the spectrum, right? It depends, because I think the human skills, and I'm a huge advocate for the human skills, but I also sit with the engineers, right? And I see the roles that are coming, and I think right now there is this huge focus on the actual like. What window do I use? What model do I use? So I think we're slowly coming out of that, and I think you're almost in the future. So I'm hoping people are starting to lean more into those human skills. But I think right now there's a bit of a scramble.
Yeah, interesting. What about you, Tim?
Flowing on that, when we think about technical skills with AI, new ones, and I think this rolls through to this, is going to think about three areas. This is kind of generalist or AI literacy that we might just need to, interact with this new technology. Applied AI skills, so how we use it in our workforce, and that could be a teacher, a nurse, an engineer. And then these advanced AI skills. And that's where like this engineering, it's like the new stuff. And I just goes like, that's the fancy world. I mean, I know the report that we put out with LinkedIn had like, there's, in Australia by 2030, there's 200,000 new jobs that will exist in the next 5 years that are just AI. So those ones that you speak about. But I think there's a combination to all of it, is that like the baseline understanding. And so any skill sets you go is like the art of prompting, and I don't know if prompting will be a word in the future, but it's the ability to ask questions. Like once you understand the models, how they work and how you interact with it. And like my flip on this is like first time I use ChatGPT or AI, so like I try to use it like a search engine, like keyword search. So like Google search did so good of like getting us to, if I wanted to go out with a dinner with my wife, I'd be like anniversary, nice dinner, Sydney, and then it'll pop up with it. But I put that in a ChatGPT and it's like, who are you? What do you want? So I just talk to it like a human, which is like, I've got my anniversary coming up. It's my 10th anniversary. I want to go somewhere nice. And it gave me a really nice response.
You have to say, act as a dating specialist. Now.
And the way that I first interacted was like keyword search in a search engine, and now I'm coming back to a human method. So this kind of after prompting is knowing how to get the best results in whatever model you are in the quickest possible way is going to be the point around number one, productivity, and number two, innovation. So that's kind of how they work and how they interact. But if we think about, like a human one, the biggest one is going to be, I think the biggest skill set we need to learn is discernment or critical thinking. So if we think about the rise of social media and where we are at the moment, and anything that comes through, is just like discernment is the number one skill set that can protect us or allow us to kind of navigate through that kind of world. And I think in when we've got lots of information coming around, I think critical thinking or being able to discern information is the most important personal skill set that we can have, because we are getting overloaded with information at the moment. We're going to get overloaded with content. It's going to get overloaded with experts, which is actually, they're all going to sound really smart. And that's going to be people that are trying to scam you. Every kind of social media thing is content. We're going to have to go discern really quickly what is useful information and what isn't useful information, what's useful for me, and how do I use that into the kind of future. And I think the thing I want to teach my kids in any digital thing era is this ability to quickly and critically analyze the information that's coming through and just go, is that relevant for me? Do I think what they're saying is truthful? And how can I use that information in the future?
And I think to your point too, I think was really good around storytelling. I would say like the number one tech skill that I think will dramatically increase in the future that you need to get around is if you're a small business owner, a large business owner, or just building your career or a business. Nope. Okay. They use my voice to train the Australian Google Assistant. That's my fun fact. And I've very often set off people's AI. True story. That's true. So to your point, you need to learn how to build content. I think you have to. I think that is the difference. That is the difference between the business that you will decide to buy a product from, the gym that you decide to go to, the protein brand that you buy online. Like this is, you will, with AI automating everything, I think it will come down to the brand. And I think that's why you're seeing this rise of this personal brand. And you would see that so much. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because I think that is what will differentiate you. And it's not enough now just to have a great tech product. You have to build a brand and a community around that. And I think if you want to have a lasting business, a lasting career, people need to find you. They need to know what you're about. They need to know what your product stands for. So I think learning how to create and build content is so key.
Yeah. And that goes back into, I guess, from a marketing perspective, I actually think social influence is important as well. So the ability to practice empathy, clear communications, active listening, strategic networking, building a personal brand. Because I think now, because there's so much information, how are you going to cut through and grab attention?
With
It's going to be
stories.
so hard. Correct. And I think our human ears are primed to listen to stories. And I do think that's going to be an important part of the future. I want to finish with one more question, which is, if you had one superpower to help you succeed in the future of work, what would that be?
For me, it would be a deeper sense of empathy, because I feel like understanding what the problem is goes beyond just a technical perspective. It's, trying to manage how people approach challenges in life or in the workplace, and being able to be empathetic is the most base level at which people can come together.
It's the basis of communication, isn't it? To be able to speak to each other and to relate to each other. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. If I could 3D print myself, that would be very helpful, because I've got a 1-year-old and there's not a lot of time to learn new things. There's definitely that. I think I'd go back to what I said earlier. Everything is figure-outable. That's a mindset.
Yeah.
Like everything is figure-outable. And I think you're either born with that mindset or you're not. And if you aren't, then you have to choose to lean in. You have to choose to be a part of the change and constantly choose. So yeah, that figure-outable mindset and a 3D printer.
Of course. What about you, Tim?
I just had this conversation with my kids last night, but they were like, which superhuman power do you want? Like, do you want to be Iron Man? Do you want to be Batman? Do you want to be Superman? But if I could be Superman, I would, I don't know if you know the episode where he went around the world to turn back time. I don't know. But I would, if I could have any superpower, I would be the ability to get time, which I think is the best. And so we can't do that because time is a constant. So I think the superhuman power I would like is ruthless prioritization.
Amen.
Because we waste so much time on stuff that's not important. Now that could be at work or whatever, or not spending time with our family, like on social media. And so it's just ruthless prioritization to either what progresses me or what makes me happy.
What not to do too.
What not to do.
I think that's the shiny AI ball at the moment.
Yeah.
There's all the things you can do and no one's talking about what not to do.
Yeah. And it's kind of like AI is not the silver bullet, right? Like it'll solve a problem. So, but yeah, I would be ruthless prioritization would be my superpower.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to have a reference to a movie as well. I love The Matrix. And I love the skill download function. Do you remember that, where you can just download yourself and you learn, it was a karate and learning how to fly a helicopter instantly? That's what I would like. Maybe that would get me to learn agentic AI in a flash, So
I can teach you about that. I know 60% of it.
I'll take 60%. I think that sounds fantastic. I want to finish with a quick survey. I don't know if we're able to just quickly pivot into the next screen. It will be one minute. And the next one, I think it is, yeah. We would really appreciate it if you can just answer 5 very quick questions and give us some feedback about today's talk. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you've learned a lot. And whilst you're doing that, can we just maybe talk about your fun facts? I mean, Natalie, that voice of yours, powerful. What's your fun fact?
One. That can be my fun fact. I married a professional big wave surfer.
Oh.
So like a world, so I live with like a professional risk taker, because those people that surf like those 25-foot waves. And I was an accidental surfing stunt double on a Disney movie a couple of years ago by accident.
Okay.
That's my fun fact.
Love it. Great fun fact.
Yeah. He was on a movie set and I happened to look like the stunt double who didn't want to go out into the water because it was shark hour. And I did.
I sent you his said. Tim, quick fun facts?
I successfully lobbied the Scone Council to have a horse path of fame. So if you ever go up into Scone now, there are all these little horses on there of all the famous horses are in Scone and jockeys, and you can thank me for that.
Oh, people of Scone and horses of Scone will thank you.
Well, for context, Scone is the horse capital of Australia. So I wasn't just successfully able to get my council back home to the random horses, and there is context for it.
Okay, fantastic. Audrey, what's your fun fact as we hopefully finish the survey? Yeah.
For me, I'd say I'm really competitive on LinkedIn Games. So if you go on to LinkedIn Games, we find that it's a really good way to connect with your colleagues and have that social connection. So love it.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to get on that. I would love to thank everybody here for joining us on this special live podcast episode of Emerging Tech Unpacked at South by Southwest. As you heard today, the future of work is moving so quickly, and so is all our skills. Hopefully we've provided some skills for you to take away, and so you can turn your uncertainty into opportunity. And if you enjoyed this episode, it's going to be live. Please subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. It's going to be on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all your favorite podcast players as well. I really would love to thank again Audrey, Natalie, Tim for their incredible words of wisdom. And thank you again to South by Southwest for hosting us as well. And thank you to the wonderful audience too. Everyone gets a clap. Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you. How awesome was that conversation? Here are my favorite highlights from each of the speakers. I love that Audrey shared fascinating insights from LinkedIn's economic data. Development roles are already evolving rapidly, and we're seeing a sharp rise in the demand for human skills, sales, HR, recruitment, empathy, and storytelling. LinkedIn's research also highlighted a sobering truth. Women and junior employees who often carry the bulk of repetitive tasks may be disproportionately impacted by AI in the short term. Natalie reminded us that 60% is enough. In fast-changing environments, no one can know everything, and being confident with 60% and leading authentically, even when you don't have all the answers, is a power move in itself. Tim broke down the real journey of behaviour change, from fear to curiosity, hype to habit, and good to great. His emphasis on critical thinking and discernment as our most vital skill for AI era truly resonated. And I spoke about the importance of creativity and social influence skills. This is the ability to communicate ideas and drive change at scale, and how we can differentiate ourselves from the machines, constant repetition, and the mundane. It's also why I love doing this podcast. I'm using my own strategic innovation and change communication skills to help people and teams navigate transformation with confidence, not fear. If you need help with communicating innovation, let's talk. If the future of work feels uncertain, that's okay. The opportunity lies not in resisting change, but in mastering the human side of it. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends and networks so they can enjoy it too. It takes a lot of research, time, and effort to put a podcast together, and I would also very much appreciate it if you can support our podcast with a donation so I can cover my podcast production expenses and keep this show and our important mission of providing quality education, promoting gender equality, and highlighting future skills and STEM career pathways going. We're always looking for sponsorships, partnerships, and guest speaking collaborations. Visit our website to speak with me directly, emergingtechunpacked.com. We are available in audio format on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can also watch us on YouTube, where we have bonus video content there. Make sure to tap the notification bell so you'll be informed of the latest episode drops. We are active on social media, so make sure to subscribe, like, and follow us on our social media channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, to stay updated with the latest news and content. To get in contact with me, you can find me on LinkedIn by searching for Lucy Lin, or on my website, lucy-lin.com. We welcome all feedback and will be very grateful if you can help us grow and spread the word by forwarding this episode to a friend and giving us a 5-star review. Thank you for your attention. My name is Lucy Lin, and thank you so much for listening to Emerging Tech Unpacked. Until next time, let's embrace human skills, learn to love change, and always be your authentic self. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, and we will see you in the next episode soon.